The story of old rancher Elijah Kane is a tale of blind hatred that almost cost him his life when he fell for the deception of the ruthless businessman Patrick O'Connell. But the smallest and most vulnerable person in his home, the mute boy Jacob, did something incredible, pointing to a hidden truth. This shocking story is about how revenge gives way to forgiveness, and lost meaning is found where you least expect it. Be sure to watch until the end, because the finale of our story, and its main lesson, will truly astound you and teach you wisdom. Subscribe and like to not miss other stories. The year 1880, near the town of Greystone, Wyoming, tall, rocky mountains, like the spine of an ancient dragon, stretched on the horizon. Here, in a lonely valley, lived Elijah Kane, a stern and silent man. He was 50, but his face was etched with wrinkles, like old leather tanned by the winds of the Wild West. 2 years ago, he buried his only daughter, Sarah, who had died of fever. Since then, his ranch had fallen into disrepair, and he himself had become a shadow, living only on memories and grief. He rarely left the house, avoided people, and his only friend was an old horse, who now seemed as tired as its owner. One cold autumn day, as the wind howled through the cracks in the house, there was a knock at the door. Elijah opened it reluctantly. On the doorstep stood a young woman. Her name was Lillian. She looked no older than 25, and she held a worn newspaper clipping in her hands. Lillian's eyes showed confusion, and her elaborate Victorian dress seemed out of place in this harsh world. "Excuse me, sir," she spoke, shivering from the cold. "Is this Mr. Patrick O'Connell's house?" Elijah froze. He knew O'Connell, a man who lived in the next valley. He was a cunning and cruel dealer, a saloon owner who cheated everyone he did business with. Elijah's heart clenched. He saw in Lillian the very mail-order bride that rumors had spoken of around the area. "No," he replied sharply. "You have the wrong door." The girl looked flustered. I came from Indiana. He wrote to me that he was waiting for me. Is this not the address of O'Connell's farm?" Elijah glanced at the clipping. "That's his address, but his farm is 2 miles from here. This is my ranch." He was about to slam the door, but at that moment, a small head peeked out from behind him. It was Jacob, his deceased daughter's son, his only grandson. The boy, about 6 years old, had been mute since birth. He rarely smiled, but now his eyes, as clear and sad as Sarah's, shone with curiosity. He walked up to Lillian, took her hand, and with incredible tenderness, pressed it to his cheek. Lillian looked at the boy in surprise, and then at Elijah. This tender and silent encounter pierced the old rancher's heart, causing him pain from the memories of his daughter, and at the same time, compassion for the stranger who found herself in such a situation.
I ask you to like and subscribe to the channel, so you will help me in motivation to make such great stories for you, and I will see that you like them. Enjoy watching, everyone.
Lillian was trapped. She had arrived at a man she didn't want, and now she stood at the doorstep of another who didn't know what to do. Elijah couldn't just turn her away. "Come in," he croaked, stepping back from the door. "The weather is getting worse." Lillian stayed. Elijah's house, once full of life and laughter, was now gloomy and empty. The boy, Jacob, was the only light in that house. He didn't speak, but his eyes, his gestures, his smile were more eloquent than any words. Lillian was scared, but decided to stay. She saw in Elijah not malice, but deep pain. She felt despair from her own hopelessness. Her fiancé turned out to be nothing like she imagined, and her only chance for a new life seemed to be slipping away. But she noticed how carefully Jacob looked at her, as if in her he had found what he so desperately lacked. One day, as Elijah was cleaning his rifle, he noticed Lillian and Jacob sitting at the table. Lillian was trying to teach the boy to read, showing him letters in an old book. Jacob smiled, trying to repeat with his lips what he saw. It was incredibly touching. Elijah couldn't bear it. He walked over to them, his voice hoarse. "Jacob's father. William. He was my assistant. He protected us from bandits, but they killed him and Sarah. Jacob hasn't spoken since." Lillian felt her heart clench. She understood that Elijah's pain was not just grief. It was a wound that would never heal. She looked at him with sympathy. "I understand," she said. "I've also experienced loss. My mother died when I was very young, and I lived with a stepfather who was cruel to me. I thought a mail-order marriage was the only way to escape, to start over. I was so naive that I didn't see Patrick's true face. He just wanted a worker for his farm." At that moment, a loud knock echoed at the door. Patrick O'Connell stood on the threshold. Rage was written in his eyes. He was tall and stocky, with a face as hard as flint and small, predatory eyes. "Elijah," he roared, "I have information that will interest you." Do you remember I said I knew the people who killed your daughter and her husband? I know who they are. Elijah tensed. You're lying. No, Patrick laughed. I know their names. Clark and Morgan. They are in town now. I saw them. Patrick looked at Lillian, and then at Jacob, and a sinister glint flickered in his eyes. That is, of course, if you give me back my bride, he whispered. I need her, and I can help you get your revenge. Elijah stood at a crossroads. He could give Lillian away to get the names of the murderers and finally avenge his daughter, but he saw fear in her eyes, and he saw Jacob holding her hand, as if afraid to lose her. For the first time in many years, his soul was not consumed solely by hatred. An epiphany dawned on him. Revenge wouldn't bring Sarah back, but helping this woman and caring for his grandson could bring him back to life. Elijah looked directly into Patrick's eyes. Get off my land, O'Connell. Patrick laughed. You only have yourself to blame, Cain. If you want revenge, you have to pay. Patrick turned and left. A few minutes later, Elijah made a decision. Jacob, he said to his grandson, get ready. He took his rifle and looked at Lillian. We're going to town. I'll find those men, Clark and Morgan. Lillian looked at him in fright. No, Elijah, it's a trap. He's lying. I don't know if he's lying or not, Elijah replied, his voice cold as steel, but he gave me names. I have to check. It's my duty to Sarah. Lillian nodded. She understood that she couldn't stop him, but she couldn't let him go alone. Then I'll go with you, she said determinedly. I know O'Connell isn't what he seems. He's dangerous, and I can help you. When they arrived in town, Elijah found the sheriff. He told him about Patrick and the names. The sheriff looked at him in surprise. Clark? Morgan? They left these parts a long time ago. And do you know who made them leave? It was your son-in-law, William, and another man. They were in the same gang. Clark and Morgan tried to take over their business. Your daughter Sarah found out about it and told them. And then she was killed. It seems O'Connell just wanted to frame you. Elijah felt his world crumble. His hatred had been directed at the wrong people. The names Clark and Morgan were merely a lure. Rage flared in his heart, not at them, but at himself, at his blind hatred that had led him astray. He looked at Lillian, at Jacob. He realized that his obsession with revenge could have cost them their lives. Elijah and Lillian returned to the ranch, but now a new enemy awaited them. Patrick O'Connell, enraged that his plan had failed, gathered his men. He wanted not just revenge, but to seize Elijah's land, which, as he knew, concealed gold deposits. Patrick did not know that at the same time, one of his former assistants, Jackson, seeing O'Connell's cruelty, had come to the ranch, determined to take revenge by revealing his secrets. Jackson rushed to Elijah's ranch. O'Connell is a scoundrel, he gasped. He deceived everyone. He killed my sister, and your daughter. Your daughter was in the same gang as him. I know you won't believe me, but it's true. Elijah didn't want to believe him, but he remembered the sheriff's words and realized that this story was too complicated. At that moment, gunshots rang out. O'Connell's men surrounded them. Elijah, Lillian, and Jackson took up their rifles, but Jacob, standing behind them, suddenly pointed at Jackson's rifle. Jackson was shocked. He didn't understand what was happening. Inside the rifle, in the barrel, Jacob whispered softly, "There's a note." Jacob, who had never spoken, was now speaking, and he was saying exactly what was needed. Everyone looked at Jackson's rifle. It turned out that there was a rolled-up scroll inside the barrel. When Jackson unrolled it, he saw that it was the map O'Connell had been looking for. The map led to the gold deposits that were located on Elijah's land. At that moment, a shot rang out. Jackson was wounded, but managed to fire back, wounding O'Connell. O'Connell's men panicked. They saw that Jacob, who had been mute, had spoken, and thought it was a sign. They quickly retreated. O'Connell, wounded, lay on the ground. Lillian approached him. "You didn't need my hand," she said. "You needed money, but you'll never have it, and I found my family." At that moment, Elijah came up to her. He hugged her. "Thank you, Lillian," he whispered. "You helped me understand that revenge has no meaning, that it is more important to find family and peace." Conclusion. This story, like many tales of the Wild West, is full of pain, deceit, and injustice, but it also teaches us that the most terrible enemy is not the one who stands before you with a rifle, but the one who sits inside you, forcing you to live with hatred. The true meaning of life lies not in revenge, but in forgiveness, because when we forgive, we free ourselves. In the modern world, where social media divides us, where it's easy to judge one another, This story reminds us that wisdom comes not with age, but with the ability to forgive. And family is not necessarily blood. It's the people you choose, the ones who are close to you in spirit.